The Mandalorian just answered a major Star Wars question. Considering that last week's episode of The Mandalorian, Chapter 13, The Jedi, was so jam-packed with action, featured the appearance of long-awaited characters, and had major implications for the rest of the series, surely this week's episode would be a bit of a breather, right? Wrong! Director Robert Rodriguez put the pedal to the Beskar metal in the aptly titled Chapter 14, The Tragedy
of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
No, not that tragedy. Well, maybe. We'll get into it. Not only did Chapter 14 advance some plot lines from earlier this season, but it answered a major Star Wars question that fans have wondered about for decades now.
Yep.
We'll get into all of that with the Easter eggs, deep-cut references, and a breakdown of what exactly happened in just a moment. But first, I must remind you that we are about to spoil the heck out of this week's episode of The Mandalorian, so if you are a kind of person that worries about that kind of thing, grab your nearest Grogu and fly away until this is all over.
Looks like we're gonna have to travel the last stretch with the windows down.
Okay, are all these spoiler phobes gone? Great, let's get into it, shall we? So the episode begins by tugging on our heartstrings with an adorable father-son moment between Dad, Jared, and Grogu as they play catch on the Razor Crest, and he giggles when he says the kid's name. It's really sweet. And as Ahsoka Tano instructed the Mando to do last episode, they're en route to Tython, a planet that's the location of the very first Jedi Temple in the old Star Wars Legends continuity, and has since reappeared in places like the Dr. Aphra comic and Star Wars The Old Republic video game. As instructed, Din takes Grogu to the Seeing Stone atop a mountain on Tython, where the wee baby must make an important decision about his future and Jedi training and reach out through the Force to hopefully connect with another Jedi somewhere out there in the galaxy far, far away. The Seeing Stone on Tython is surrounded by these massive henges that kind of vaguely evoke the Temple of Exar Kun from Knights of the Old Republic, at least from my Imperial credits. Din places Grogu on the Seeing Stone, which is ringed with writing that feels straight out of the World Between Worlds from Star Wars Rebels, as well as the writing at the Sith Temple on Malachor. The wee baby Grogu is also delighted by a blue butterfly, which we have seen several times before in Star Wars canon. They're on the forest moon of Endor in the Clone Wars, and they feature prominently as well in the non-canonical Star Wars Rollout animated series, which is for children, which sees Ben Solo frolicking with some blue butterflies. It's very cute. And while you may be asking yourself, is this a meme format? Well, they could actually have some potentially greater significance in the long term given their mythological connection to things like resurrection, rebirth, and renewal, as well as long life and love, which you can read all about on Nerdist.com. Meanwhile, Grogu's headspace meditation on the magic rock is swiftly interrupted when a ship flies overhead, but it's not just anyone, it's the Slave One, Boba Fett's iconic ship piloted, as it turns out, by Boba Fett himself in the Boba Flesh. And he's not alone, he brought everyone's favorite Imperial sharpshooter, Fennec Shand, along with him, as played by Ming-Na Wen. As it turns out, she didn't die in the Tatooine desert. Boba saved her life, apparently, by giving her a robotic stomach, somehow. You know, that old tried and true Star Wars medicine. Anyway, the Mando tries to grab Grogu and Gogu, but he's repeatedly repelled by a mysterious force field. Get it? A force field? You get it. Anyway, Grogu's deep in meditation, presumably connecting with Force users across the galaxy, and while we don't get a solid answer about whether or not anyone actually sensed Grogu on Tython, we have a bunch of theories about who could potentially arrive down the line to school as a child in the ways of the Force, and I will link to that in the description below as well. But Boba makes the Mando an offer he can't refuse. He wants his father's armor back, and in exchange, he and Fennec will ensure Grogu's safety from a conveniently timed battalion of stormtroopers who followed the tracking beacon that was placed on the Razor Crest by a traitorous mechanic a few episodes prior. Remember that guy? Yeah, what a piece of crap. What follows is what I can only describe as a delivery on the 4-decade-long promise that Boba Fett actually is badass. As longtime Nerdist viewers know, we have clowned on this disintegration-prone bounty hunter in the past, but now we have nothing but respect for the sheer amount of ass he kicks even without his armor. Case in point, he uses a Gothy stick to give one stormtrooper space CTE. Look at that helmet, dude is dead. Meanwhile, Fennec Shand recreates one of the most iconic plays in Counter-Strike Global Offensive history, Cold Zera's flying AWP shot on Mara so she can take out some bad guys. And she proves that she isn't just a sniper, she's also an expert at recreating Raiders of the Lost Ark when she rolls a massive boulder down a hill to take out a bunch of space Nazis in what is almost definitely an homage to one of George Lucas's other iconic creations. In perhaps the most Dank Ferrick-worthy moment of the episode, though, Boba Fett retrieves his iconic armor from the Razor Crest and proceeds to prove me wrong. He almost single-handedly decimates the enemy stormtroopers by shooting them, detonating explosives, and launching rockets from his knee pad, which in the old Star Wars Legends canon actually used to contain Fex M3 neurotoxin-laced darts, which sounds pretty cool, but sometimes you just need a rocket to blow shit up. Now, in addition to no-scoping a hapless stormtrooper, Boba pulls off the biggest flex of 2020 by launching a rocket which hits one of the Imperial transport ships, causing it to crash into the other, so it's raining men, hallelujah, it's raining men indeed, dead men, but men nonetheless. Unfortunately, Din Djarin can't catch a break, because the rule of threes dictates that his spaceship must also explode as the Razor Crest gets hit with a massive laser from Moff Gideon's Imperial command cruiser, which is just floating overhead. Things go from bad to worse, though, when Moff Gideon confirms our theory and unleashes 4 Dark Troopers who retrieves the child from Tython's surface. These jet black murder mechs come rocketing out of the ship like the bastard child of Iron Man, Ultron, and Warhammer 40k Space Marines to surround Grogu, who is just too tired from the efforts of communing with the Force to fight back. Boba follows the Dark Troopers in the Slave One through the cloud cover and makes the grim realization that the Empire is in fact back. This isn't a spice dream, he tells Fennec, in yet another thing that Star Wars borrows from Dune. I mean, come on, a spice dream? Okay. With all hope seemingly lost, though, the Imperial remnant jumps away with Grogu in tow, leaving Din, Boba, and Fennec standing in the smoldering wreckage of the battle. Boba then shows Din the chain code embedded in his armor, which is written in the Mandalorian language. In this moment, we get an answer to one of the biggest questions in Star Wars canon, the revelation that Jango Fett is in fact a real Mandalorian after all.
Yep.
Jango was a foundling who, according to Boba, fought in the Mandalorian Civil Wars. In the Mandalore plot episode of the Clone Wars, Prime Minister Almec says,
Jango Fett was a common bounty hunter. How he acquired that armor is beyond me.
Well, dum-dum, you've got your answer. He is as much of a Mandalorian as Din Djarin is, because this is the way.
Yep.
Now, to be fair, whether or not the Fetts are true Mandalorians or just murderous cosplayers was hotly contested over the years. According to the Creating Mandalore featurette in the Clone Wars Season 2 DVDs, George Lucas himself told Dave Filoni the Fetts were not Mandos, but in the Star Wars Legends lore, they were. Now, though, thanks to The Mandalorian and its propensity to recanonize old details from Star Wars Legends, the Fetts are officially Mandalorians once more.
Yes.
Yep.
Now, this also lends a darker overtone to the siege and potentially purge of Mandalore, given that the clone troopers were modeled off of Jango Fett's DNA. But hey, it wouldn't be Star Wars without plenty of daddy issues and war crimes galore, am I right? And speaking of daddy issues, Din Djarin is filled with patriarchal rage over his kidnapped kiddo. Fortunately, as Boba and Fennec remind him, they promised to keep the kids safe, so they're gonna see that mission through and join Din to rescue Grogu. But to do so, they need someone with a very particular set of skills, and no, not Qui-Gon Jinn, he's dead. I'm talking about Bill Burr's ex-Imperial sharpshooter, Miggs Mayfield, who you may remember from last season's The Prisoner episode. Well, turns out he's in prison now. No! Din links up with Cara Dune, who's now serving as a Marshal of the New Republic, to get the inside scoop on Miggs' location, who's apparently serving hard time in the Karthon Chop Fields, a brand new location in Star Wars lore, which seems to be some sort of grueling prison planet. While Cara Dune probably won't join the Mando for this particular rescue mission, she is willing to bend the New Republic rules slightly when she learns that Grogu is in danger. The episode ends on a dark note with Moff Gideon going to taunt and interrogate Grogu, who's giving in to his dark side tendencies and brutalizing a pair of stormtroopers by force pushing, pulling, and maybe choking them. After gloating and showing off the Darksaber, Gideon has them shoot Grogu with the sleep gun, which I kind of wish was a real thing. He then commands his subordinates to send an encrypted message to Dr. Pershing, the Kamino and cloning facility expert, that they have their donor. Clearly, as we learned during the siege, they intend to harvest more of Grogu's midichlorian-rich blood so they can continue whatever sick Sith science they're doing to create viable strandcast bodies into which Palpatine can project himself or control them like a malevolent meat puppet a la Supreme Leader Snoke. Now, this could also be why the episode is called The Tragedy.
It's not a story the Jedi would tell you.
Exactly. It's a reference to the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise. Our resident Sith scholar Michael Walsh has a theory on Nerdist building on our previous speculation about Moff Gideon and Palpatine's grand plans, which I will link to in the description below. After all, the dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, and what could be more unnatural than cloning yourself and then living on this nightmare planet with a stadium full of your cult members? I thought so. Anyway, the Sith is clearly about to hit the fan in the remaining episodes of The Mandalorian Season 2, and we can't wait to see the crack team of commandos and killers the Din assembles to kick butt, take names, and get his baby back. While I doubt we'll see Ahsoka Tano again, something tells me that we'll see Bo-Katan, Axe Woves, and Koska Reeves join forces with our anti-heroes again real soon. And that is everything you need to know about The Mandalorian Chapter 14, The Tragedy. But tell me, folks, what did you think about this week's episode? Did you spot any references or Easter eggs that we missed? Who do you think the Mando is going to recruit for this rescue mission? Let's discuss in the comments below, and for the latest and greatest in the world of pop culture, make sure you stay tuned to Nerdist.com.